Okay.
We'll see when we see.
I'm going to call the regular meeting of the Board of Aldermen to order on Tuesday, October 12th at 7:30 PM in the Aldermanic Chamber and via Zoom teleconference, meeting link can be found on the agenda and on the city's website calendar. Prayer will be offered by City Clerk Susan Lovering, and Alderman at Large Michael B. O'Brien Sr. will lead us in the pledge to the flag.
Almighty God, we have the high honor and the serious duty to manage the affairs of our beloved city. Fill us, O God, with the spirit of unity and understanding, which enables us to face our multiple problems with a serene mind, with justice and charity for all, so that any and all decisions made by us will always be for the betterment and greater happiness of all our fellow citizens. So help us God. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
Flag
of the United States of America,
and to
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's start the meeting by taking a roll call attendance. If you are participating via Zoom, please state your presence, reason for not attending the meeting in person, and whether there is anyone in the room with you during this meeting, which is required under the right to know law. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman O'Brien.
Present in the chamber.
Alderman Clee.
I'm here and in the chamber.
Alderwoman Kelly. Alderman Dowd.
Present and in the chamber.
Alderman Karen.
I'm here in the chamber.
Alderman Clemmons.
I am here participating via Zoom. I can hear everybody. There's no one in the room with me, and the reason that I am participating via Zoom is I am staying safer at home.
Alderman Lopez.
Here.
Alderman Tenza.
Present.
Alderwoman Lou.
Here.
Alderman Jettie.
Here.
Alderman Schmidt.
I am present in the chamber.
Alderman Laws.
I'm here participating via Zoom. I'm alone in the room other than my infant daughter, and I'm babysitting, so I couldn't make it in.
Alderman Cleaver.
Here.
Alderman Harriet Gathright.
Present in the chamber.
Alderman Wilshire.
I'm here.
You have 12 in attendance, and you have 2 participating via Zoom.
Thank you. Also in attendance this evening is Mayor Jim Donchis and Corporation Counsel Steve Bolton. Mayor, did you wish to address the board this evening?
Yes, thank you, Madam President. Just a few things I wanted to mention to you. First, a brief update on the COVID status. We remain in a status of substantial community transmission. Right in the last most recent period, the positivity rate in Nashua has been 5.9%, which is similar to what it's been for a number of weeks now. It's up and down a little bit. The number of active cases is 178 right now, and we have had about 337 cases per 100,000, that's one of the metrics, over the last 14 days. So since we're 90,000 or so, that means a little over 300 cases over the last 14 days. So we are in substantial transmission, but we are pretty stable over the course of the last several weeks. So Public Health, Director Bobby Bagley is watching all of this carefully, as she always does, and we will let you know if there are any significant changes, either up or down, as in the weeks or months ahead. I wanted to mention some of the things, Madam President, that are on the agenda tonight. First, R21-173 related to the paraprofessionals in our schools. This is a one-year contract that will get us through this current year. Paraprofessionals are a very critical component of the education that we provide in Nashua. Our goal is to have an excellent education for every student in every school every day. And the paraprofessionals who assist the teachers with many different things are a very important part of that, of achieving those objectives. And they are certainly not overpaid. It's an understatement. They make only a very modest compensation, and they deliver a very important product or service to the school. So I'm sure you're all aware of that and will vote in favor of this collective bargaining agreement. Madam President, I did also want to mention the master plan, which is on the agenda for final approval tonight. This has been in the works for quite a long time. We had great participation from hundreds and hundreds of people across the city, in every neighborhood of the city. It became apparent that we have many residents who love Nashua and have very deep feelings for our community and want to do everything they can to make it an even better place to live. We had a 23-member steering committee who helped to guide the efforts of our staff, our consultant, as well as all of the residents who participated through online surveys, through polls, through at least one in-person meeting, through many internet posts and internet voting in many different ways. And I want to thank on behalf of the city, all of those who participated, not only actively on the steering committee, but also all of the residents who gave very valuable input. So through this joint community effort, we developed, I think, a very solid and forward-looking, imaginative plan. 6 areas were reviewed, particularly 6 kind of subject areas. Each received separate conversation: land use and development, mobility and transit, housing, economic development, open space and environment, and arts and culture. And leading goals were developed for each of those subject areas. The group also looked at areas of the city that were particularly subject to redevelopment and change, those being Amherst Street, the Amherst Street corridor, DW College property, Daniel Webster College property, of course, Central Business District, downtown Main Street, East Hollis Street over towards Hudson, Northeastern Boulevard, where there could be some very interesting changes, and of course the South End Daniel Webster Highway. As you look through it, you'll see that the vision of the group that was developed is that Nashua is committed to being a welcoming, diverse, and forward-looking city that offers a variety of economic, housing, educational, and recreational opportunities throughout a vibrant and resilient community that provides a high quality of life. So again, I'd like to thank everyone involved, Amber Cole and Amber Morgan, and all of the people that were involved and provided such a valuable input. And also, I would like to say that our next step is the preparation of the land use plan that will accompany or be the follow-on to the master plan. And before I conclude, I wanted to pass on some rather sad news, which I think all of you, or some of you, all of you are aware, and that is that Community Development Director Sarah Marchant has decided to embark on the next stage of her career by taking a job up in Concord. She was very involved in the master plan and many, many other things that you're all aware of. She's been a very valuable asset for the city, and we will have a great deal of trouble replacing her. And of course, we wish her well and congratulate her on her next journey. But I did want to express personally on behalf of the Board of Aldermen and the residents of the city that she's made a very valuable contribution over 7 years or so, and we will, definitely miss her in the months and years ahead. And that's all I have, Madam President.
Mayor, response to the remarks of the mayor? Alderman Dowd.
I'd just like to echo my thoughts on losing Sarah Marchand. I worked with her very closely over the last few years, and she has been outstanding in that position, and it will be a huge loss, but I wish her well and understand why she's making the move, and wish her all the best.
Anyone else? Alderman Lou.
Thank you. Over the weekend, well, let me just say, when we embarked on the master plan, this board voted on the resolution R-19-183, and on December 10th of 2019, when that resolution was voted on, it was an amended resolution because several members of this committee thought it was important to include a member from every ward on that committee. Now, I learned this weekend that this committee holds a member of every ward except for Ward 6. And this specifically fails the terms proposed in Resolution R-19-183. I'm deeply disappointed to learn this. And I've been told by Mayor Donchis that they couldn't find anyone that would serve. And if this indeed is the case, then I say look deeper. The ward alderman is an obvious resource to fill a committee seat. Was I contacted? No. I've spoken with several members of this administration today about this. No one can give me a reason why their difficulty to find a ward representative didn't spur them to contact the ward alderman. I just hope that this doesn't ever happen again, and that people who may be attending those meetings or who may be privy to the membership, because I should have noticed this. I should have brought this up when I learned it. But the membership was not on the city website, it's on other places. And I was not aware until today. And I just feel very disappointed that our ward was overlooked in that way. Thank you.
Anyone else? Responses to the remarks of the mayor? Okay, recognition period.
There is none.
Presentation.
None.
Reading minutes of previous meetings. There being no objection, I'll declare the minutes of the regular Board of Aldermen and special Board of Aldermen meetings of September 21st, September 27th, September 28th, 2021 be accepted, placed on file, and the reading suspended. Communications requiring only procedural actions and written reports from liaisons.
There is none.
Period for public comment relative to items expected to be acted upon this evening. Could I ask everyone to please mute their phones? Thank you. Tonight we have Giovanna Bonilla. Oh, looks like she's gone. Okay, Adam Marcoux.
Good evening. My name is Adam Marcoux. I'm president of the Nashua Teachers Union. I live at 4 Jalori Lane, and I'm here to speak in favor of the para-educator contract that is being presented tonight. The mayor spoke highly of our paras, and unless you've been a para or worked with them, what they bring to our school districts in our 17 or 18 buildings now is often overlooked or not seen. Without paras, our district would not function. As a classroom teacher myself, I would not have survived teaching without the para-educators that worked in my classroom with me, on the grade level that I worked in within our building. These people often deal with some of our most challenging students because they make those connections, the one-on-one interactions. And it's not because other people haven't tried. There's something special about the paras in our district. And I'm grateful to have a contract going forward. This contract expired in June of 2020. And because of various different things in place, including COVID-19 and the death of the chief negotiator for the union, this contract was held up significantly because of those things. It is a 2-year deal, but year 1 is long gone and year 2 is almost expired. So I'll be back hopefully before June looking for another approval. But I want you to know that while I support this contract fully, I will be back looking for a lot more money next time, because our paras are underpaid and underappreciated. And you can go work at McDonald's, Burger King, Dunkin' Donuts, the Camp Car Wash on Amherst Street, and a variety of other places, including Walmart, Amazon, and any place pretty much else other than this district, and make a significant amount of more money. And you're not gonna get spit on or kicked. And not because the kids are doing it maliciously, but because sometimes that's just how their body functions. And these people understand that and work so well with them. So while I'm happy to have a contract for them, we can't fill those positions because everyone else can't fill positions because everywhere else is making much more money than we are.
30 seconds.
Thank you. I like your new light thing up there too. It's nice. Maybe the Board of Education can get that. So with that said, I thank the Budget Review Committee for their endorsement of this bill or legislation or whatever you call it. And I look forward to the rest of the board supporting it as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Lori Ortolano?
Lori Ortolano, 41 Berkeley Street. I'd like to address the minutes that you approved tonight and the statements made by Attorney Bolton at the end of the meeting on September 28th. I take exception with his analysis or discussion regarding the abatement and the property appeal that was won up at the BTLA. He said the legal department, myself, met with her and her attorney, and she basically adopted the position that she would not compromise and that she would not settle for the exact amount, and that she would only settle for the exact amount that she claimed her assessment should be. This is wholly untrue. Attorney Bolton knows that when we met, that the city offered no value at all. They made no attempt to provide a number. On the record, during the abatement with the Board of Assessors, I asked them if they would accept 592, take a KRT number for the sales value and reduce it by the ratio of 94.8%. And the board said no. The Board of Tax and Land Appeals, Bolton says the Board of Tax and Land Appeals came in slightly less than the middle. This is a graph or a diagram that shows the property assessment. The city asked for 2019 that the property have a market value of $800,000. I asked through my appraiser, they came up with 598. The BTLA awarded 650, and when you applied the ratio, the city wanted the assessment to be $710,400. My appraiser had it set for 531, and the BTLA gave 577. I asked for 592. When Attorney Bolton says as many times, this is not a win for either side, this was a huge win for me. It was more than I really wanted. So I was very happy that I could get 2019 applied, because if they had settled with me on the 2018 number, I would have never gotten the 2019 value. So to me, this was a huge win. And when Attorney Bolton says that the BTLA came in the middle, they were looking for a substantially higher number. I would like, and I'm going to submit to the record, the 18-page decision from the Board of Tax and Land Appeal. They used, the city appraiser used 2 sales that were really illegally used.
30 seconds.
And I knew it. And Mr. Gardner, the board found merit in the taxpayer's criticism of using her own property to create an assessment. Additionally, he said, the BTLA said the use of 51 Berkeley Street was wrong. It was more than double the size. The lot was 2.14 acres compared to a third, and that property had sold for 1.15 million. In light of these substantial differences, Mr. Gardner's testimony regarding the reasons why he selected this property as a sale comparison was not credible. I want the facts on the record.
Your
I'd like
time
to
is
submit
up.
this. Can I submit this?
You can submit it, yes. You can hand it to Alderman Tenza, and he'll make sure we get it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else on Zoom that wants to give public comment? Not seeing anyone? We'll move along. Communications requiring final approval?
Point of order, Madam President, if I may. Since we received communications after the agenda, do we have to vote to accept that communication?
What communication?
The communication that Ms. Orlando has provided.
If you want to make that motion, go ahead.
I am allowed to make the motion?
Sure.
Thank you, Madam President. I would like to make a motion to accept the communications from Ms. Orlando after the agenda was prepared.
Thank you. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman O'Brien.
Yes.
Alderman Clee.
Yes.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes.
Alderman Karen.
Yes.
Alderman Clemmons.
Yes.
Alderman Lopez.
Yes.
Alderman Tenza.
Yes.
Alderwoman Lou.
Yes.
Alderman Jettie.
Yes.
Alderman Schmidt.
Yes.
Alderman Laws.
Yes.
Alderman Cleaver.
Yes.
Alderman Harriet Gathright.
Yes.
Alderman Wiltshire.
Yes,
You have 14 yeas and 0 nays.
that motion carries. Communications requiring final approval.
Communication has been received from Tim Cummings, Economic Development Director, regarding communication on overnight parking.
Okay, so Director Cummings is asking us how we want to proceed on the overnight street parking program expansion. He's looking for us to give him some direction on that. Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you, Madam President. I'll start this off. Many of us did go to the meetings, and they did take an area that was involved, particularly in the downtown. And is it complete? The answer is no. I mean, many people that have extenuated, such as my colleague Ward 3 and different other areas, it didn't encompass all of Ward 3. It was just basically an area. But let's look what the intention is to do. The intention is to give what happens, let's say, within that geographical area, Cedar Street, what happens on Cedar Street, can that be applied to Toll Street? And the answer possibly could be, you know, as far as like some of the parking and everything. So I'm not against this. This would increase the area. And I'm hoping, you know, focus on what I think of that, talking about what we heard in the committee. But I'm not against this. The only thing is, I just wonder if that would come with an extra cost. Did Mr. Cummings mention that? It would increase the scope of the company that is doing this study.
I don't recall that.
Okay.
Alderman Lou.
Could I just ask Alderman O'Brien to just clarify what it is that you're saying needs to be increased in scope? Wasn't clear on what you.
Well, you had the opportunity, all aldermen had the opportunity, particularly the downtown, the ones that are affected by this. You had the opportunity, there was a meeting upstairs at the auditorium. And if I'm correct, that's what we're talking about here. And, excuse me, a little feedback. Yeah. Okay. What it is, it didn't go all the wards, downtown wards. So it took a section of the city. So increasing this will be looking at, there was questions by some of the home aldermen. There was 2 meetings. The first one I intended was a stakeholders meeting, and then there was a second meeting opening it up to the ward aldermen. It seems the flavor of some of the ward aldermen they wanted, well, how come you're not bringing in my whole complete ward? The intention was just to have like a focus on this. Like I say, we are paying the contractor to come in to take a look at this. And again, I'm all in favor of expanding this, you know what I mean, to look at it, to get a good, fair understanding of it.
May I follow up?
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you, Alderman O'Brien. So my understanding of the letter from Mr. Cummings is that the part of the parking study that has to do with overnight parking has been completed. Now, Desmond was going to do was going to look into many issues for parking in Nashua, including whether we have sufficient downtown parking, whether we should change our manner of charging for parking. But it was my understanding that the overnight parking part is completed, and the question is, would we like to address it now that it's completed?
Well, I would very caution you, because you and I have had this direct conversation before. I'm under the impression that this is not completely done. This is a phased-in type of a program that's going. Since the city is in inception of 1673, according to the city seal, there's been no overnight parking that I know of in the city of Nashua. And when we incorporated as a city of Nashua in 1853, there still was no overnight parking. So this is the first time. The trouble at hand is, you gotta look at this within certain neighborhoods. What was traditionally a 2.5-story frame building, which had 2 families in it with, maybe dad had the car, mom may not have driven, as was popular in past years. There was 2 cars and able to be entered into the driveway. Now, from what I understand, motor vehicle registers more cars than we have parking spaces in the city of Nashua. So this causes a problem. So to say that the parking issue is complete, it is not. What needs to be done is, as in phases, we're gonna have to look into zoning of it, deciding which areas are gonna have maybe on one side of the street, not both. There's a whole complex issues, right down to what are we gonna do about trash removal? Are citizens gonna remove their car on trash day? Are we gonna have central, one area where everybody collectively put their buckets? So there's a lot more questions that need to be addressed before this program really comes running out.
Alderman Clee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think I'd like to try to see if I can clarify some things. The parking study was originally put together only to look at the downtown parking and so on. When COVID happened, they added the overnight parking study.
Right.
That portion actually has finished. There was a meeting not too long ago that took the downtown area and kind of added a couple streets to it for the parking study, not the overnight parking study.
Right.
The overnight parking study has been done, and the report that we got did in fact talk about creating zones, et cetera, and so on. And I believe that's the portion of the parking study that Director Cummings is asking us to move forward
That's correct.
with. Not the, so in my ward, part of the parking study that won't be finished until February does include streets like Locke, because they added that to it. They added some streets that go up to Amherst Street. So it's not just the downtown parking study. They kind of added some high streets too. So in that respect, for me to be able to sit down with my constituents and create an overnight parking for Locke Street and so on, we can still create it, we can still work for it, but we really can't ask for approval until that study is being done.
Right.
As far as other wards are concerned, or other parts of Ward 3, such as maybe Rancourt, Pennachuck, we could discuss overnight parking, because the remainder of this parking study that is due to be finished in February won't affect them.
Wow.
So I think that we can look towards certain areas of being able to approve an overnight parking study. I think the biggest impact will be on Ward 4 and part of Ward 3 that we really can't make a decision on. But I think we can go forward with trying to come up with a plan for zoning of different neighborhoods. So I have met with some people from French Hill, and we've talked about the need to talk to all the neighbors and try to create zoning. But they're also aware that we have to wait for the full parking study to be done to find out how many spaces would truly be available. But it doesn't stop us from finding out who wants it or who needs it, and then being able to move forward. Rancourt, just using as an example, Pennachuck, some of those streets over there, we could create zones now, and if the board went forward with approving some type of zoning. As far as cost is concerned, I do think that there will be a cost to it. And that would be a cost of staffing to economic development, because they would have to help develop all of these zones, maintain these zones, monitor these zones, and so on. And that will take more FTE. So my colleague is right here in that respect of that. I do believe there'll be indirect cost. Alderman Lou as well, correct that we're talking two different studies here. This one here is for the overnight, which the downtown parking study would not affect your ward. Although it could.
Oh, good.
Because you're on the edge of the downtown, so I take that back, but perhaps not Ward 1 for Alderman Schmidt or something like that. But it would affect Alderman Lopez as well as parts of myself. Thank you.
Alderman Clemmons.
Thank you very much, Madam President. I'll going to have a very different point of view. I've always been the type to look at these situations individually. It's the way I prefer to do it. I don't believe that we needed a study for this. I think we should have had overnight parking in this city years ago. And so my hope is that we can start expanding this as soon as possible and getting as many streets as we can to have overnight parking. Thank you.
Welcome. Alderman Lopez.
So we've had an overnight parking program. It was a pilot program when I first became alderman and was adopted as a program. During that period, we had a process for individuals on the street asking their aldermen if their streets could be added to it, and amending that program repeatedly. And particularly Ward 3 added a lot of individual streets to the program. And the way that it worked is somebody who is living on a street that's identified by fire, police, and DPW as being wide enough and safe enough to have the parking spaces. Spaces are allotted on that street based on where they can be safely put, and then the addresses in that area are also authorized to apply for it. So you may live on a street where you can get parking permits, but you may have to park on the street next door if your street's too narrow. But in a point where there aren't accessible streets reasonably nearby, that street wouldn't necessarily be approved. That was a process when I became alderman and as I was alderman. And through work with the infrastructure committee, we explored that, we expanded it, we confirmed it in a semifinal form, and then work stopped. Like, we didn't continue looking at that. We didn't look at additional options, and several years passed. We began to talk about doing a study when a number of constituents signed a petition about 2 years ago, maybe 3 now, on the back of a parking ticket, because like most of 8th Street had been ticketed, and they objected to that. When that was brought before the infrastructure committee, it was tabled, and the argument was made that we needed to do a study because if you put overnight parking on one street, then adjacent streets might be affected, and adjacent streets to that might be affected. It was considered part of the downtown. The definition of downtown was expanded to include all of the number streets. So we had a lot of conversation about having a study, but still several months passed before it actually took place. Then the study was authorized, I want to say last year, and the study was presented upon recently at the Infrastructure Committee meeting. And my objections throughout the process of the parking study was that we were doing a citywide, do we want overnight parking, do we not want overnight parking, which was largely a question nobody had asked any of the outer wards. Nobody had proposed overnight parking in those areas, and they largely objected to it because in areas that are suburban, where they have enough room to pave their driveway and they have a large enough property that it makes sense to do that, they can park in their lot, in their driveway. In the more urban areas where there isn't a lot of land available, where residents typically build up or have to, have multiple people per unit, you don't just have an unlimited number of parking spaces and driveways, so they need on-street overnight parking. So this is a major issue for Ward 4, but it's not a major issue for other wards, necessarily. Some of the other wards did identify during that citywide evaluation that they do want to have additional on-street overnight parking. And some of what was proposed by the study, once they completed it, was a new process. So instead of people on the street just asking their alderman, who then confirms it with DPW, fire, and police, and then authorizes either the spaces that are available, or if there's extra capacity, at least the ability to apply for an overnight parking permit. The process that they recommended is very different, where there has to be a commitment on the neighborhood level to a number of years in advance. Like, we will get permits over the next 5 years. There has to be a certain percentage of neighbors in that area that are specifically interested in it. And if you don't have the percentage of people on that street, you can take the half of the street that has the higher percentage and then move to the next one. That's where my concern is the process that was proposed in the overnight parking study is very convoluted and to me just counterintuitive. When the study was presented, the company that managed it and was making the recommendations was very frank and said that almost nobody that they've had as customers has actually adopted all of their recommendations. I remember Alderman Jetty had a particular interesting soundbite because he said, well, I wish we'd known that before we hired you. So that's where my concern is the study's done. I do want to move forward with overnight parking 100% because I think it's an urgent need in Ward 4. But I'm not confident in the process that is being proposed and in the amount of time that it would take to adopt that process, because the neighborhoods who, in my mind, precipitated this and spoke most loudly in favor of it have had their motions tabled for almost the duration of my term in the Infrastructure Committee, and very likely would just get no answer before the end of this entire 2-year process. So I'm not enthusiastic about that. I'm not averse to the idea of coming up with a good system that is a sound system that is effective for all of the people affected, but I'm not sure that that's what was presented, and I'm not sure that's the direction we're going, because as it is right now, the system that I see is 4 wards where it is relevant. You can approach your ward alderman, or any alderman, they can approach the at-larges, indicate the need, and then that alderman is responsible for coming up with the legislation and then having the rest of the committee vet it. But that's not the process that's being proposed. And that's where my concerns lie.
Okay, Alderwoman Lou.
I didn't have my hand up.
Okay, Alderwoman Clee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do agree with Alderman Lopez in respect of that. We cannot take all the recommendations. To give someone permission for 5 years and we don't open it up again for 5 years, I kind of found that a little bit hard to handle. But I do think that we can take the plan and we can work with it. I think we can create something. As I said, I have been working with constituents talking to them, getting ideas. They like the idea of it, but I don't believe there is a one-size-fits-all for ward. I don't think there's a one-size-fits-all within my own ward. And I think we do need to create these zones. I do think we need to start doing some work. I have been willing to work with my constituents and go door to door and literally ask them, do you have a need? Do you have a want? It's a lot of work. I've already had a couple meetings. One I had to cancel suddenly, but I do think in general, it's a good idea, but I do think it needs to be tweaked. And I do agree with Alderman Lopez that we can't adopt it as is. But I do think it should go to the infrastructure committee. I think that it should be worked out there sooner than later. The year is almost up, and as Alderman Lopez has said, he's got a lot of people that have been waiting for a long time to get a positive or a negative, rather than just sitting in limbo. So, thank you.
Alderman Jettie?
Thank you. I read Director Cummings' communication as just being a request that this conversation begin, and he's planning on coming to the infrastructure committee, so I don't think we have nothing before us to act on tonight.
Right.
If it's in order, I would move that we refer this to the infrastructure committee.
That's in order. Okay. Alderwoman Lowe?
Thank you.
We're going to refer this to the other committee, so.
I just wanted a clarification about the zones that Alderwoman Clee has described. Are those not the zones where you pay a different amount of, no, that's not, it's not zones for prices per hour of parking?
Alderwoman Clee?
And I apologize for shaking my head.
No, that's okay.
Alderwoman Liu. No, it's overnight parking zones. So in other words, for instance, when I was looking at the French Hill area, and I was looking at Locke and Whitney, and I kind of made this very long rectangle, and I said that would be too far for a mother with a baby to have to go all the way to the end by Chandler if she lived over by Orange Street. So I said we would take that and create a block. That would be a zone.
I see.
So right now, the way the overnight parking works is if you get an overnight parking permit and you live on West Hollis, you could park over on Locke Street or Whitney. What this would do is you would have a parking permit for your zone, not anywhere in the city, which is what it is now. And so perhaps in my area, maybe going from I'm being tongue-tied right now, I apologize. So I'll say Pennachuck to Brinton, that might be too big too, so we might have to make smaller bites of it. But it would be talking to those neighbors. Do you want it? And as Alderman Lopez had mentioned, you may take one street and only 25% of the people want it. So you'll look, okay, 25% of the people want it here. Can we create parking? No one is guaranteed a parking space in front of their home because that would be illegal. But we could maybe guarantee them a parking within that zone. So if 20 people want it, can we find 20 parking spaces? No, we can only find 10. Then it might be a lottery. We'd have to figure out how those 20 people will get down to 10 people. Those are all the little things that we have to work out.
Thank you. That's the zone. Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Okay, we will move this to the infrastructure committee, and we'll move on our agenda. Petitions,
None,
nominations, appointments, and elections.
none.
Reports of committees. There being no objection, I'll declare the report of the September 20th, 2021 Planning and Economic Development Committee be accepted and placed on file. There being no objection, I'll declare the report of the September 22nd, 2021 Committee on Infrastructure be accepted and placed on file. There being no objection, I'll declare the report of the September 27th, 2021 Budget Review Committee be accepted and placed on file. Confirmation of mayor's appointments.
There is none.
Unfinished business resolutions.
Second reading of resolution R21-165, authorizing the city of Nashua to enter into communications tower lease agreement.
Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you, Madam President. I would like to make a motion for final passage of R 21-165 by roll call, and may I speak briefly on it?
Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you, Madam President. As I hope we all remember, this has dealings with the, a potential cell tower that's going to look like a light stanchion that's going to be in Holman Stadium. We are very fortunate to have a good legal team. They worked with the provider on this, and with that, we're going to get some, on this particular pole, some new additional lighting and at a better cost, so it's a win-win for the city in this type of thing. And also, too, if it increases the cell phone coverage for our constituents in that area, that's another win-win. So I urge you all to support this. Thank you.
Any discussion? Alderman Clee.
Thank you again, Madam President. I agree with Alderman O'Brien in that it is a win-win situation, and having it in Ward 3, it's a real big boon for us. So I would like to see this passed as well.
Further discussion? Seeing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman O'Brien.
Yes.
Alderman Clee.
Yes.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes.
Alderman Karen.
Yes.
Alderman Clemmons.
Yes.
Alderman Lopez.
Yes.
Alderman Tenza.
Yes.
Alderwoman Lou.
Yes.
Alderman Jettie.
Yes.
Alderman Schmidt.
Yes.
Alderman Laws.
Yes.
Alderman Cleaver.
Yes.
Alderwoman Harriet Gathright.
Yes.
Alderman Wilshire.
Yes.
You have 14 yeas and 0 nays.
That motion carries, and Resolution 21-165 is declared duly adopted.
Second reading of Resolution R 21-170, relative to the approval of the Imagine Nashua 2021 Master Plan.
Alderman Tenza.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to make a motion for final passage of R 21-170 by roll call.
Okay, motion is for final passage. Discussion on that motion. Alderman Tenza.
Just briefly, Madam President, to echo what the mayor was saying before, just thank you to the committee members, everyone who came out. We may have benefited that so many of the meetings were virtual and people, it was at a time when people were, had time. So although it's been 20 years since the city has developed a master plan, I think we can all be very happy with the outcome, with the participation, and I think this will serve us well into the near future, and hopefully we're back here in 10 years with a slight update to this plan we're putting forth tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Lopez.
Yeah, I want to echo what Alderman Tenza said. Wow, I guess we're all just echoing each other today. But I want to underscore, it's very important that we continue to update this as it goes, because we let this one get out of date very much, so the plan didn't really reflect what Nashua's needs were when the zoning board and the planning board were trying to use it. So it's important for us to do our due diligence and make sure that, I guess, our future due diligence and make sure that this stays up to date. It was a huge undertaking to update it and make it what it is today, which is wonderful, and I really appreciate all the work that went into it, but we don't actually have a crystal ball, so we can't see the future. So we need to stay nimble as a city and make sure that we're recognizing the needs of our constituents as they present themselves.
I did attend many of the meetings, and I was so impressed with the participation. And I agree with Alderman Tenza, and I think I spoke to Director Marchant about the captive audience, the amount of people who were able to zoom in and participate in this, I thought was tremendous. I'd also like to thank Community Development, and especially Amber Morgan for her leadership in chairing this committee, so thank you very much. And everyone who worked on it, it's great. And Matt back there too, shaking his head, yeah. Further discussion. Alderman Clee.
Thank you again, Madam President. I just want to echo the words from everybody, and I really would like to thank the community for coming out. I hate to say that anything good came out of COVID, but I do believe that something good came out of COVID, and there was more participation than ever before. People didn't have to leave their homes, they could do it. And through Director Marchant and in Amber's guidance, we had the, and Matt and everybody, I hate to keep naming people and forget somebody, but we had the online polling where people could literally just put a pin in a map and say what they wanted or what there was an area. And I had a lot of constituents that called me, asked questions. So I know that Ward 3 was quite involved and so on. So I do want to thank everybody's work and all your ideas, they were phenomenal. And the community came up with some brilliant ideas, so thank you.
Alderman Lou.
I want to just reiterate that it's baffling to me that one ward would not be included in membership, and that no one that was involved in this committee recognized it or thought it was important to, in order to rally that particular ward by having an actual resident appointed. I cannot monitor the appointments and whether they comply with the resolutions that we vote on. And I've brought up in the past that it seems when a committee appointment is required to be a Nashuan or it has certain restrictions or qualifications that are required, I don't understand where the accountability sits for that. There's a reason for them, for these appointments to have characteristics that are described in our ordinances. I'm told that the committee that approves the mayor's selections is not tasked with ensuring that the qualifications are being met. And so I assume that our legal department is. I don't know who the mayor's using to keep these appointments proper, but they didn't treat Ward 6 properly. And I'm just baffled that nobody thought to give me a call. Thank you.
Alderman Lopez.
I cannot speak for all of the other aldermen, but I will say, I don't entirely trust all of the at-large aldermen to remember Ward 4, because you're all representing the whole city instead of the individual ones. So nobody called me to let me know that there was nobody on Ward 4. I went through the list, I asked the mayor about it. The mayor identified somebody who was definitely in June's ward, and then I gave him a list of candidates. So, Alderman Karen, sorry. So I will say that we all do our responsibilities differently. But if anybody from Ward 4 is listening and you reach out to me, whenever I see things like this where I want to make sure that Ward 4 is fully represented and that our perspective is heard, it does help to have a list of people. So maybe everybody listening should reach out to your local ward alderman if you're interested in volunteering or being involved or anything like that. And then as ward aldermen, we can make sure that our residents are heard and are on these committees and on these boards.
Anyone else? Motion before us is for final passage of Resolution 21-170 by roll call. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman O'Brien.
Yes.
Alderman Clee.
Yes.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes.
Alderman Karen.
Yes.
Alderman Clemmons.
Yes.
Alderman Lopez.
Yes.
Alderman Tenza.
Yes.
Alderwoman Lou.
No.
Alderman Jettie.
Yes.
Alderman Schmidt.
Yes.
Alderman Laws.
Yes.
Alderman Cleaver.
Yes.
Alderman Harriet Gathright.
Yes.
Alderman Wiltshire.
Yes.
You have 13 yeas and 1 nay.
That motion carries, and Resolution 21-170 is declared duly adopted.
Second reading of Resolution R 21-172, authorizing the mayor to enter into a second amendment to concession agreement with Granite Diamond LLC.
Alderman Harriet Gathright.
Thank you, Madam President. I motion for final passage of R 21-172 by roll call.
Motion is for final passage. Discussion on that motion. Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman O'Brien,
Yes.
Alderman Clee,
Yes.
Alderman Dowd,
Yes.
Alderman Karen,
Yes.
Alderman Clemmons,
Yes.
Alderman Lopez,
Yes.
Alderman Tenza,
Yes.
Alderwoman Lou,
Yes.
Alderman Jettie,
Yes.
Alderman Schmidt,
Yes.
Alderman Laws,
Yes.
Alderman Cleaver,
Yes.
Alderwoman Harriet Gathright,
Yes.
Alderman Wilshire.
Yes.
There are 14 yeas and 0 nays.
That motion carries, and Resolution 21-172 is declared duly adopted.
Second reading of Resolution R 21-173, approving the cost items of a collective bargaining agreement between the Nashua Board of Education and the Nashua Teachers Union Local 1044, AFT, AFL, CIO, Unit B, para-educators from July 1st of 2020 through June 30th of 2022, and related transfers.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion for final passage of R 21-173 by roll call, and I'd like to speak to it very briefly.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes, this was unanimously approved at the Budget Committee. It was stated in several instances that the paras are a huge asset to the city and to the teachers and to the students. And these paras are, as was stated, underpaid based on everything that's happening and the job they perform. So I would ask that we get unanimous approval. Thank you.
Further discussion, Alderman Lopez.
I just would like to say that I would not be where I am today without paraprofessionals. I appreciate all their help over the years. I never bit or spit or anything like that, but definitely had my challenges to work through. And I would also say that they are increasingly critical to our school performance and needs as we see more adverse childhood experiences piling up, not just from the opioid crisis and from, increases in domestic violence, but from the blockbuster year that was 2020 and 2021 is shaping up to be. We need to make sure that our staff are supported. We need to make sure that they're equipped to do the things they need to do in order to help our children be successful. And that includes making sure that we're paying them a living wage.
Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to say that I am so happy to vote for this. In the past, of my time on the board, the past board president, Brian McCarthy, could not vote for this because his wife, like my wife, Diane, worked as a paraprofessional. My wife worked up at the Broad Street Preschool for over 20 years. She did not get a pension because the hours that she worked with did not count as a full-time job in the preschool environment. Her duties there was to assist the teachers because these were special needs kids. And they, needed a lot of attention. The teachers had to do work. And sadly, another issue that's out there is sometimes teachers got to sit down and just do the paperwork. So who fills the void and does the work? It's the paras. And the work that my wife did, even into potty training, some of the kids that came up. So as they moved on and perhaps maybe hopefully they went to Harvard or somewhere else, they can have their potty training experience from my wife. That's her educational legacy. But the thing is to have qualified people to do this at such a low rate of pay. I was very fortunate in my occupation to do the wife, and it's what we've both agreed to. Yeah, she could have gone out. She's college educated. She could have done something else. But my daughter was born with cerebral palsy, so we understand the needs. And our daughter received a good education because of the paraprofessionals. So I can speak highly. I'm very happy to give my vote for this. This is one of, I think, the first times that I could do so, and it gives me such pleasure to do it. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you for sharing your story, Alderman O'Brien. Further discussion. Alderman Cleaver.
Just like to mention that we need to raise the pay over the next year or so. The next contract should do much better for these people. They do an outstanding job.
They do. Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing no one, would the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman O'Brien,
Yes.
Alderman Clee,
Yes.
Alderman Dowd,
Yes.
Alderman Karen.
Yes.
Alderman Clemmons,
Yes.
Alderman Lopez,
Yes.
Alderman Tenza,
Yes.
Alderwoman Lou,
Yes.
Alderman Jettie,
Yes.
Alderman Schmidt,
Yes.
Alderman Laws,
Yes.
Alderman Cleaver,
Yes.
Alderwoman Harriet Gathright,
Yes.
Alderman Wiltshire.
Yes.
You have 14 yeas and 0 nays.
And that motion carries. Resolution 21-173 is declared duly adopted. And thank you to all the paras out there. Unfinished business ordinances,
There is none.
new business resolutions.
First reading of Resolution R21-174, relative to the acceptance of $25,000 from the State of New Hampshire Department of Safety State Homeland Security Grant Program into Fire Grant Activity 2020 Homeland Security Grant Program.
Additional sponsors? Alderman O'Brien, you're a little slow on that one. Alderman Clay, Alderman Dowd, Alderman Karen, Alderman Lopez, Alderman Tenza, Alderman Schmidt, Alderman Cleaver, Alderman Harry Gathright, and myself.
You guys who aren't.
Given its first reading, I'll assign that to the Human Affairs Committee.
First reading of Resolution R21-175, relative to the acceptance of $300,000 from the State of New Hampshire Department of Safety into Police Grant Activity FY 2022 Opioid Abuse Reduction Initiative, ORA grant.
Additional sponsors? Alderman O'Brien, Alderman Clay, Alderman Dowd, Alderman Karen, Alderman Lopez, Alderman Tenza, Alderman Schmidt, Alderman Cleaver, Alderman Harriet Gathright, and myself. Given its first reading, I will send that to the Human Affairs Committee.
First reading of Resolution R21-176, relative to the acceptance of $128,781.82 from the Federal Department of Homeland Security into Fire Grant Activity FY 2020 Assistance to Firefighters Grant and authorizing the transfer of matching funds.
Additional sponsors, Alderman O'Brien, Alderman Clay, Alderman Dowd, Alderman Karen, Alderman Lopez, Alderman Schmidt, Alderman Cleaver, Alderman Harriet Gathright, and myself. Given its first reading, I will assign that to the Human Affairs Committee.
First reading Resolution R21-177, relative to the supplemental appropriation of $250,000 of FY 2021 assigned fund balance into Fund 6500, Property and Casualty Self-Insurance Fund.
Additional sponsors, Alderman O'Brien, Alderman Dowd, Alderman Lopez, Alderman Cleaver, Alderman Harriet Gathright. Given its first reading, I'll assign that to the Budget Review Committee and schedule a special Board of Aldermen public hearing on Monday, October 25th, 2021 at 7 p.m.
First reading Resolution R21-178, changing the use of funds for a community development capital improvements project from master plan to land use code update.
Additional sponsors, Alderman O'Brien, Alderman Clee, Alderman Dowd, Alderman Schmidt, Alderman Cleaver, Alderman Harriet Gathright, and myself. Given its first reading, I'll assign that to the Budget Review Committee. New business ordinances.
There is none.
Period for public comment. I have 2 speakers signed up tonight. Michael O'Connor. Name and address for the record, please, and you have 3 minutes.
So Michael O'Connor, 42 Berkeley Street. Good evening. I'm here to comment on the assertions made by Mr. Bolton at your last board meeting after he interrupted Alderwoman Lou's remarks. Mr. Bolton downplayed the July 14 Superior Court ruling, which was clearly in favor of Mrs. Ortolano. Alderwoman Lou had attempted to discuss the ruling against the city. Mr. Bolton started his interruption asserting untrue and then quibbled over meaningless distinctions and various other grievances. During his talkover of Alderwoman Lou, facilitated by President Wiltshire, Mr. Bolton appeared to have been triggered when the Alderwoman had stated the legal department was admonished in the ruling. I quote, "The judge did say that the city, not the legal department, the city was dilatory in providing those documents." Okay, the city was admonished. But let's remember that the job of Mr. Bolton is to represent the city. So I guess the record should show our unadmonished legal department served our admonished city poorly. I will quote a few excerpts from the clear court ruling. It is undisputed that the city first informed the plaintiff that the requested files were unavailable due to the corruption of the tape backups 9 months after her initial request. The city's actions or inaction shows that it was disregarding the discovery request or misleading the plaintiff about the availability of responsive documents. The city has not demonstrated substantial justification for their conduct. The court notes and admonishes the city for its objection. The court finds the city's objections to go against the underlying facts. The court also finds the tone of the city's objection concerning. The court is concerned about the city's candor and if the city attempted in good faith to resolve the dispute. The stark contrast between the objection and the city's position in the hearing is striking. I respectfully submit the 5-page ruling for your minutes. You would think a superior court questioning the city's candor and good faith would be a worthwhile topic for this board. One wonders why President Wilshire cut off discussion of the ruling. The board should consider a line in the February 9th, 2016 Telegraph article which reported the mayor's intention to nominate Mr. Bolton for the city attorney. The mayor said then, I quote, "His team will carefully comply with state right-to-know laws and maintain open and transparent government. I request this board and/or the mayor instruct Mr. Bolton that he should facilitate that stated intent and stop his questionable legal stratagems that result in the admonishment of the city by a superior court." Thank you. For the minutes?
Laurie Ortolano, you can hand it to Alderman Tenza. We'll make sure it gets to.
Thank you.
Minutes.
Laurie Ortolano, 41 Berkeley Street. The September 28th meeting was very disappointing for me because this board does not follow Mason's rules. And over again, I have watched older people, aldermen and alderwomen, get interrupted and cut off by Attorney Bolton when he becomes inflamed by something that doesn't agree with him. In the 2016 letter that my neighbor just referenced, it said Bolton's tenure on the board was marked by criticism for what some described as his autocratic leadership style. Further in the article, it says Don just declined to address the criticisms of Bolton's temperament while alderman, but noted that the city attorney would not be involved in any as an elected board member. It's a totally different role for him as city attorney. He is not a legislator or an advocate for anything, but simply represents the city's interest. All too often, I think Attorney Bolton takes the floor and takes it away from the body that's here. And I went out and have done plenty of door knocking, and not long ago, President Wilshire, you stated that the citizens deserve better. I can tell you this week door knocking, I had people comment about that meeting on the 28th and said, we deserve better, and this chamber needs to change. It's just not right what's going on here. Citizens are knocked down, elected officials are knocked down by this unruly belligerence that's allowed to exist in this chamber. It needs to stop, and I hope this election brings some of that about. I'm very concerned about the misrepresentations Attorney Bolton stated about my legal case. He gets the floor for an extended period of time. I have a timer that runs for 3 minutes and cuts me off. I don't know why you don't ask him to submit on the record something in writing so we're all able to see it. I think there's been 110 filings on my right to know case. Utterly absurd. For him to characterize that every motion for summary judgment I lost was actually wrong. There were a number of summary judgments submitted that Judge Temple simply said, take them into the trial to be decided. They weren't judged against or for. They were just requested to be brought into the court. So it's just very disappointing to see how this city operates against its citizens. And this elected body is just not doing the job it should do for us. Thank you.
Beth Scare?
Yes, yeah, Beth Scare, 111 East Hobart Street. Yesterday was the 1-year anniversary since Mayor Donches and Alderman Jan Schmidt had my Save Women's Sports flag removed from the Citizens Flagpole on Nashua City Hall Plaza. And yesterday was also the running of the Boston Marathon. The lead male winner finished in 2 minutes and almost 10 seconds. The lead female winner finished in almost 2 minutes and 25 seconds. 25 minutes. And so that was a 15-minute difference. And since the difference between the first and fifth male runner was about 1 minute and 10 seconds, there were likely hundreds of men finishing before the first woman crossed the finish line. If we allow men to participate as women in women's sports will be dead. And Mayor Donches and Alderman Schmidt should let me put my flag back. You should let me have that flag out there to defend women's rights to our own sports. Thank you.
I don't see anyone else online with their hands raised, so we're gonna move on. Remarks by members of this board. I'm gonna start over here. Alderman Schmidt.
Thank you, Madam President. I just wanted to thank the League of Women Voters and Nashua Public Library for 2 forums that they've already accomplished. The next one is October 21st. That will be the Board of Education candidates. It's very interesting to visit. I know the last one had over 90 people watching off and on during the comments, and I think it's something we should do in a democracy. Make sure we know who's running. Thank you very much.
Anyone else? Alderman Loop.
I'd like to offer to move to accept the written
We'll do that after we do
correspondence.
comments, okay?
Sure.
Okay. Alderman Cleaver, I'm sorry, I missed you.
I'd like, belatedly, I'd like to thank Director Marchand for all her work she's done. The short time that I've been able to work with her, I've been very impressed with her professionalism and her abilities and her dedication. So thank you to her and best of luck in Concord.
Alderman Tenza?
So I'll also thank Director Marchand for her service. I think she was a real asset to the city. I know that Concord will have a great new employee up there. Certainly that's a community where there are a lot of different things that can be done, like here in Nashua, a little different community though. So thank you for her service. Thanks for everything she did for the master plan and with housing and the riverfront development and every other project that she has her fingerprints on here in Nashua. So she will be missed. Thank you.
Alderman Lopez.
I can't thank Director Marchand enough for all the things she's done. When I first started as alderman, and it was a major priority for my ward to gain input on planning and economic development issues and that stuff. She was the director not only of the planning department, but at the time she was covering the economic development while we were looking for a candidate. And she was a wealth of knowledge, of information. She has worked tirelessly to create improvements to the bus system, expanded service for transportation. The Rail Trail East, I think, is going to be largely a result of her vision and the leadership that she shows with her staff. So I'm very appreciative of everything she's done. And I can only imagine that the work that she does in Concord will also continue to benefit us in some way. I also wanted to make an announcement about an event coming up this Saturday, on October 16th, in what looks like an unholy alliance. The Oompa in the Park and Duck Derby have been combined. So, you gotta go see that. The Duck Derby is the Rotary's fundraiser, and then Oompa in the Park is a cultural celebration for Oktoberfest. Family-friendly events. It's from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. At Le Parc de Notre Renaissance Francais and Bicentennial, right on the bridge on on Main Street. So everybody should definitely come out and check it out.
Anyone else? Alderman Clay.
Thank you, Madam President. I too would like to thank Director Marchant for all that she's done. When I first became an alderman, I went to the mayor and said to him, we need to do something in French Hill. Lock Street sidewalks are horrible, and I was seeing people with baby carriages and people with mobility issues having to go out onto the streets because there was lack of tip down and so on. The mayor said that maybe we could scrape together $100,000 for the sidewalk, and I took a walk with Director Photo, who said that would get me probably about the size of this room. That was not going to do any good. The mayor worked with Director Marchant, Ms. Chisma's, Public Works and so on, and through all of them, especially community development, we were able to get a grant that will hopefully soon, fingers crossed, we'll start working on that project and so on. But Director Marchant has done been a great asset, I think, for the city. You bring a problem to her, she helps. One of the things that she's been able to help me with the past year was I am a member up in Concord on the Municipal and County Government Committee. We get a new bill, and the first person I run to is Director Marchant and said, will this help or hurt the city of Nashua? I have my opinion, but I want to go directly to the person that I know and I trust the most that will be able to help us. And she gives me information and so on. So I have one more year left on that committee. You couldn't have stayed for one more year. Thank you so much, but you'll be up in Concord. I'll hunt you down. Thank you.
Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you, Madam President. And I'd like as well to wish Sarah Marchant, Sarah, I would really like to wish you well and, you know, your new endeavors up there. And Concord is a small place, you know, and hopefully we'll, you know, get to bump into each other. But I look over the time. We in Nashua are very fortunate to have some great division directors, and, you know, unfortunately, we can't go putting stars on their forehead enough, you know, but we're very fortunate to have these good, excellent division directors that really keep the what's going on, the wheels of the city turning in a positive direction. And Sarah, you were one of them. I enjoyed my time, whether it be working on the dam, you know, the hydroelectric, and to other different things, rail and commuter rail issues and everything else. You have left your fingerprints on a lot of projects that have been in the city. And even though you'll be gone, some of these projects will develop and keep going. And I'm so glad that you were, you know, part of it and direct us to it. And I would like to say, not that it was the greatest things that we ever worked together, but I did enjoy our time together working and changing the umbrellas down on Main Street. That is not necessarily a highlight, but I did enjoy that. But, you know, a lot of projects that you were very positive with. So I wish you the best of luck and good luck in your future, and enjoy. Take care.
I too would like to thank you, Director Marchant, for all the work you've done for the city. You have certainly left your impact here, and I'm sure you'll do the same in your new job because that's who you are. So thank you very much. You'll be missed. Alderwoman Lou.
I failed to also wanted to thank you very much, Ms. Marchant. And you're so responsive to questions and emails, and I really appreciate that. Alderwoman Klee brought up, you know, how helpful you've been, and it made me realize that is a really important part of our work, is being able to have access to people. And I would be remiss not to say, with candidates running for office, that a risk that you do run is that you may be on a board where the legal office will not answer a question in order to help you make a vote. And the difference between, you know, someone who is willing to do their job and someone who is not makes a huge difference to elected officers. So thank you.
Alderman Tenza.
So, Madam President, I apologize. I didn't mention this before, but we should also mention that this Friday, the Brian McCarthy Foundation is holding its annual charity event and fundraiser. I was waiting for the two board members on that side of the room to maybe mention it. But Friday night at Boston Billiards, you can participate online with their auction as well as the event if you're able to come Friday night. So please support that charity in memory of President McCarthy. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Tenza. Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you, Madam President. Again, I'm sorry, I was so enthralled in saying goodbye to Ms. Marchand. I forgot, but tomorrow night, the fire department's going to have their award ceremony, and I know it's in conflict. You know, it's like everything else, you know, just pick a date and everything that appears on that date. But it's going to be for the people who studied hard, and we're very fortunate in my family. My son is going to receive his lieutenant's promotion tomorrow night, but it'll also be for the new firefighters that are coming on board, and we welcome them. I know they're full of the good traditions that to follow in this department to put the fires out. And also, too, will be awards for firefighters who went above the call of duty, and they will be recognized appropriately. So it'll be tomorrow night, and I think it's at Nashua High North Auditorium. Thank you. And it starts at 7 p.m.
Thank you. Alderwoman Lou, did you have a motion you wanted to make?
I'd like to move that correspondence sent after the earlier this evening be included in our records.
Motion is to accept the communications placed on file. Would the clerk call the roll?
Alderman O'Brien.
Yes.
Alderman Clee.
Yes.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes.
Alderman Karen.
Yes.
Alderman Clemmons.
Yes.
Alderman Lopez.
Yes.
Alderman Tenza.
Yes.
Alderwoman Lou.
Yes.
Alderman Jettie.
Yes.
Alderman Schmidt.
Yes.
Alderman Laws.
Yes.
Alderman Cleaver.
Yes.
Alderwoman Harriet Gathright.
Yes.
Alderman Wiltshire.
Yes.
You have 14 yeas and 0 nays.
And that motion carries. Committee announcements. No committees? Alderman Tenza.
Next Tuesday, October 19th, the Planning and Economic Development and Infrastructure will be meeting jointly. We'll actually be meeting upstairs in the auditorium, so that we can facilitate the conversation we're gonna have.
Thank you. Any other committee announcements? Seeing none, Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you, Madam President. I would like to make a motion that the October 12th, 2021 meeting of the Board of Aldermen be adjourned by roll call.
Motion is to adjourn by roll call. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman O'Brien.
Yes.
Alderman Clee.
Yes.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes.
Alderman Karen.
Yes.
Alderman Clemmons.
Yes.
Alderman Lopez.
Yes.
Alderman Tenza.
Yes.
Alderwoman Lou.
Yes.
Alderman Jettie.
Yes.
Alderman Schmidt.
Yes.
Alderman Laws.
Yes.
Alderman Cleaver.
Yes.
Alderwoman Harriet Gathright.
Yes.
Alderman Wiltshire.
Yes.
You have 14 yeas and 0 nays.
That motion carries, and we are adjourned at 8:53 p.m. Thank you, everyone.